Hey guys, it's Josh here again. I'm coming to you with my second video. I know lots of you guys watched the first one. I received many messages and the feedback was great. So I'm going to try to give these on big events, big market opportunities. And today we have that. And I really want to try and make the case for Bitcoin. I've been reading quite a bit about Bitcoin in the Discord, seeing comments, seeing people's thoughts and feelings. And it's been pretty negative in my opinion. And I want to try to make the bull case for you for what I see for the end of the year. And today, as you guys have probably heard in my first video, I'm pretty neutral. I try to lay out the charts and the data, and I try to not really state my opinion. But today I'm going to take the filter off because I think that might be useful for some of you guys. So today I'm going to first look at the markets, and then we're going to do a deep dive into Bitcoin, and then we'll wrap it up with some trades that I think are fairly interesting. So obviously, today was FOMC. The Federal Reserve cut rates by 50 basis points. And if you watched my last video, things are playing out so far exactly what the video said, that we were going to briefly exceed all-time highs. But my expectation would still be that we will probably retrace about 50% of this move up here through September, but we would push higher October into mid-October. And the reason why I would study markets is because it is correlated to Bitcoin, even though some might argue that it's uncorrelated. The correlation has strengthened recently. And Fundstrat, if you look at kind of their analysis, um, again, I want to keep these short, but if they're looking at DeMar counts, GAN theory, a combination of factors, and their expectation is that we will consolidate here. And it doesn't mean we're dropping. It doesn't mean we're going into a 2008 recession. I'm looking at my X feed, and people are calling for the 2001, 2008, stock market collapses. And just to be honest with you guys, I'm just getting really pissed off because um, I think just stating that because the Fed cuts rates 50 basis points that the market needs to crash is just bad analysis. And I wish I could uh, spend my entire video going over it, but I'm going to refrain and spend more time on Bitcoin. But what Fundstrat is just advocating for is, hey, we're going to be consolidating here a little bit, and they provided a S&P cycle chart, and all cycles is this purple wave line. It's not magnitude, it's amplitude. So you want to use the purple line as just general movement for the stock. So for S&P, you can see that we've peaked up here, brief pullback, pushing up here. And again, they're seeing, some minor signs that we might need to consolidate here until we push higher into October. And Mark Newton, their technical strategist, believes that we could have a little bit more consolidation in November around the election time before we push higher into December. And we must remember, what does election year returns, or what are election year returns? They're very strong. And I think people forget about that. And in election years, it's still relatively strong, but we're also in an election year where the previous year returned more than 10%. And you can actually see that September returns are not as bad in election years when the previous year was strong. It's actually positive. It's up 0.4%. And in October, again, it just tends to be a little bit choppy. So we might rise a little bit, but maybe retrace a little bit. And this kind of comes to my, one of the reason why I'm making this video is people, when it comes to markets or when it comes to Bitcoin, they tend to be way overly bearish or way overly bullish. And sometimes it's okay to be neutral or maybe call for smaller moves. Just because the Fed cut rates, it doesn't mean the markets need to drop 30%. Just because Bitcoin fell a couple $100 after Jerome Powell stopped talking, it doesn't mean we need to call for 52K or 48K. And when we look at the market, earnings are strong and we're not in a position where earnings are declining. Um, and when even Tom Lee, he phrased it that the 50 basis points is good. And 7 out of the 7 last times we cut, um, 3 months later, the S&P 500 was higher. Again, this is since 1971. There's no recession, but this is their no landing scenario. And people are calling for a hard landing, soft landing. Well, what if there is no landing? And again, it's just kind of my original point. Maybe you don't need to get overly bearish or overly bullish. Maybe it's okay to be somewhere in the middle. Um, and we're going to go to Bitcoin here, and I want to spend more time on Bitcoin. Um, when we look at Bitcoin, and I thought it was so funny, when they cut rates, Bitcoin started to pump. And then once Jerome Powell stopped talking, it started to drop. And you can literally go to the Discord and different channels, and people are giving out their price targets of 48, 52, 55, and people get so extreme. And then here we are at 61,000. I'm not saying that this is going to hold or anything, but in Discord, people have been so negative, and there's been a lot of discussion of I think, I feel. And you as a trader need to decide, am I going to trust or am I going to give more credit to what I'm feeling? And again, I'm not saying that investors need to have a gut, they need to have instinct. But when I'm reading through Discord, I see many people who are writing, I think this is going to happen. I feel like this is going to happen. And I just think you have to come to the decision, am I going to lean into this is what I think, this is how I feel, or do you give more weight to, well, this is what history would suggest? And again, history is not usually repeated exactly twice, but it is data. And I would prefer to lean on data and what has happened in the past than my own feelings. And you have to make that decision yourself. Like, which one do I give more weight to? I prefer history rather than how I'm feeling that day. So I thought that was interesting. Um, and I wanted to answer the question, is the Bitcoin cycle over? Is it time to get out of Bitcoin? Because I know I've been reading posts on X that they're saying that, this is the lower high. It's time to get out before we drop to a lower low. And I just want to step back as far back as we can. We were green on the Tabby model about a week ago. And all that is suggesting to me is we have a long way to go. In fact, we might be still in the beginning of yellow phase. Um, and I want to bring up some posts here. We'll get into the Lila level here shortly. Again, I apologize. This video might be slightly longer. But it's interesting. I saw this on X. The setup is similar. Again, this is just a fractal, but you see where in 2020 there was some rate cuts. The charts are similar. The RSI is similar. Maybe it could play out like that, but we need to dig deeper, right? Well, we're positive in September and people are still bear posting, but Bitcoin is positive in September, which I think is something that not a lot of people are discussing or maybe even care about. And I posted this in Discord. Again, you guys know I use Fundstrat a lot. He's saying this move has been impressive, but just like how the S&P 500, he's expecting to consolidate here, there could be some consolidation for Bitcoin. It doesn't mean we need to wick down to 50,000. Could it happen? Absolutely. But we can be more conservative in our bearishness. We can look for consolidation. We can look for a pullback to maybe 58, 56, 57. Um, and he points out that we need to kind of break this downtrend. But again, he's advocating for um, a little bit of consolidation right now. And when I started posting again, when we look at monthly returns, it's in my opinion, it's best to look at the median returns and not the average returns, because you can see here in November of 2013, Bitcoin, it went up 449%. That's going to skew your average a bit. So you really want to get rid of these outliers. When we look at median returns for Bitcoin, if, write this down if you want to, because it's just a fact, October is the strongest month for Bitcoin. Okay. And in fact, it's not even close. The next strongest month would be February, and October is almost double the returns of February. Okay, so let's put that in the back of our minds. October is a strong month for Bitcoin. And we'll go into MSTR and stuff like that. But if we go back and look at what did Bitcoin look like last year, this is just an example. I'm not saying it's going to play out the same, But Bitcoin in September last year, it looked dead. It looked like it wasn't going to do anything. But by the end of October, it went up 26%. And by the end of the year, it went up 114%. Well, that's interesting. Okay. And even going even further, oh, I think I might have lost my post. Apologies there. I'll go back to TradingView. When we go into TradingView again, I just want to illustrate this. When we were in September, October of Bitcoin last year, you know, it looked awful. It was down 21%. It looked like, and again, if you tap a support, three times, it usually breaks. And I don't think anyone was buying into this sort of pattern. A lot of people were going to fade this, thinking we're going to go up half the year and then down. I saw that trend quite a bit in 2023, and nobody was buying Bitcoin in September. But if you zoom out, oops, and if you zoom out, look what happens in October. Okay. So was this the best technical structure in the world? No. Was September strong? No, it was just choppy. But if you were able to get to the end of the year, you experienced all the returns that October has for you. Um, so the way that I want to frame this is big September is a huge opportunity for us as traders to buy Bitcoin. And even if it isn't, you can cut the trade in October. And I would wager that if Bitcoin doesn't pump in October, maybe it's possible that it's just flat. And maybe that's the time you reevaluate your trade. And if you want to cut it, by all means. My main focus of this video is to maybe illustrate that September is a great month to buy Bitcoin, and it's good to be bullish here. People are still bearish; they're bored. But in all honesty, I haven't been this excited since maybe December, January of 2023. But when I read Discord, when I read X, it doesn't seem like people have the same enthusiasm as they used to because the price action has been boring. But Tesla is about to do insane things with the robotaxi. It might completely change the company, but nobody's really talking about it. Nobody's really talking about Bitcoin. And I feel like there's a lack of enthusiasm. But right now, I am so excited and I'm trying to get other people excited, but it doesn't feel like anyone is enthusiastic with me. Um, Anyways, Bitcoin, Mark put this up on chat. We need to break this sort of downtrend, and it looks like we could break it as soon as tomorrow. We would really need to close above there. A couple solid candles would be good. But again, how do we, if we can establish a few things, if we can agree on a few things, one, that October is the strongest month for Bitcoin. Two, the time to buy Bitcoin, or it's good to be bullish on Bitcoin for the end of the year. And again, I try not to do things based on feelings. You're always going to be able to make the bearish case. You could do the election, you could do the president, you could do recession, you could do debt. By all means, sell your Bitcoin at that point, But if you look at history, in halving years, Bitcoin is strong in Q4. And I think an easy trade here is to add a Bitcoin position here. You can do that with MicroStrategy. You could do that with the Bitcoin ETFs and wait until the end of October to see if it works out. And if it doesn't, perhaps you cut the trade. But my main thing that I'm really trying to press here is that now is the time to allocate. And I think the easiest way to do that is to buy MSTR when it's low on the ARB cloud. I think MSTR is great exposure to Bitcoin. And I think people even get greedy. Maybe you agree with me that September is a great time to add to Bitcoin. That's not the time to start going to buy out of the money calls on CleanSpark. Be frugal, be conservative, try to figure out your allocations. It's okay to buy pure form MicroStrategy stock. You don't need to be an options expert. Um, and with MicroStrategy, I think we're at a great place. I think 131, anything between 119 and 131 could be a good buy. Again, I don't want to give trade advice. You do what's best for you. I am just trying to make the point. It doesn't really feel like anyone's talking about Bitcoin or is remotely positive on Bitcoin because it's so boring right now. And I think that it was the similar case back here in August and September of 2023. But by October, everything changed. So I hope that's useful. Again, it might sound like I'm like losing energy or I'm frustrated, and it really is because I am. I my main point where I really think the markets are going to go, I think we have a little bit of consolidation here, but you don't need to be overly bearish or overly bullish. I think it's okay to be somewhere in between for Bitcoin and for markets. So my expectations here for the last week and a half, 2 weeks of September, some consolidation, um, maybe just a little bit of backing and filling, but I do expect a bullish move in Bitcoin and the markets in October. Around elections, I think the market could consolidate a little bit there before we push higher into December. Um, and you can choose how you want to allocate to this Bitcoin run, but it feels like it's something that nobody's really talking about. Buy possibly MSTR, you could buy MSTR options, do what you feel most comfortable with. Um, but I wish people were more excited about markets because it just feels like the enthusiasm's not there. So I hope that wasn't too open and honest. I hope you guys will still enjoy this video and let me know your thoughts. I hope I got you a little bit more excited about what's to come. So talk to you soon.